Hello, everybody. Welcome to our event today. In this first episode of the series, I'd like to introduce a couple of our speakers. My name is Ashley Tarver. I'm a Microsoft data and AI evangelist living in California, and I'm helping organize this event and help coordinate it. Chris Lahamadou is a Microsoft specialist focused on Microsoft 365 and Copilot, and Brad Garston is the owner and founder of Quanta Networks, a Microsoft partner who has the specialties of helping deploy Microsoft technologies, as well as the Copilot technologies that we'll be talking about today. In fact, this is the first of 5 episodes. We've created a new campaign, AI Made Easy. It's a conversation series. And I really wanted to do a big shout out to the Association of Corporate Growth. They are a nationwide association, nonprofit. And if you haven't looked them up, there's a chapter in your city, and they provide a great way of connecting with other senior level executives in your community to talk about topics related to technology and business. Also, we have Quanta Networks, as I mentioned earlier. Brad and his company, they're a Microsoft partner focused on helping companies like yours deploy any type of Microsoft technologies. Today's focus is on Microsoft 365 and Copilot. But together, we're launching this campaign, AI Made Easy. You can see, you can easily go back to the existing invitations and sign up for future events. But we're going to be focusing today on how Copilot can be leveraged inside of your existing Microsoft 365 suite. And then we have additional Copilot type solutions that are being rolled out, one for sales, one for finance, one for service. And then last, on the episode 5, we're talking about how you can customize Copilots to bring in your own proprietary data to help make it even more impactful for yourself, your employees, and your customers. So we hope you can enjoy today's event, but also sign up for one of the next events, and please reach out. We also are in a position, if you want to do a custom event for your own company after you've heard the content and you want to dive into a deeper workshop, you can again reach out to us and we can help coordinate that for you as well. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you so we can kick off the discussion.
Awesome. Ashley, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you might be in the world. My name is Chris Lahamadou. I'm a Microsoft 365 technical specialist. I'm actually based in the Metro Atlanta area, and I support our retail and consumer packaged goods vertical within Microsoft. Really great to talk to you all today, and hoping to maybe drive some clarity around this crazy term Copilot that Microsoft has been using, and help you get excited about having generative AI at your fingertips across a number of Microsoft 365 experiences. To say that AI has come to work is probably a little bit of an understatement. We leverage this survey capability that we have, or that we've been doing for years, something called the Work Trend Index. And right now, a lot of those questions are around generative AI. We survey, thousands of employees, tens of thousands of employees in 31 countries in all different verticals. And we ask about generative AI. 75% of people are saying they already use generative AI in some capacity in what they do. And interestingly enough, 78% of those people say they bring their own AI tools to work. So if you are a corporation or an organization that is wanting to make sure you protect your data, that may be a concern, right? This idea of, we talk about shadow IT. This is kind of shadow AI, right? In terms of what that provides. And so we want to make sure that we can help customers, our customers, Microsoft customers, have options to be able to safely work with generative AI and empower people to have a next level upgrade in productivity and efficiency, driving towards a better work-life balance, all of those things that are super important to everybody in every organization. Now, you probably had to have been living under a rock a little bit to not hear about Microsoft's relationship with OpenAI. Our partnership with them allows us to leverage some of their technologies as a foundation to be able to provide a series of options for customers to use generative AI. For example, if customers want to build very custom generative AI solutions, right? Where they want to be able to, use AI to be able to reason over content and generate text. They want to be able to generate images from text-based prompts for marketing or what have you. Or they want to build conversational experiences based off of AI that they could make available to internal employees or maybe to their customers on the world. Microsoft's solution for this is Azure OpenAI. It enables customers with a powerful set of capabilities across lots of different models and options to be able to build generative AI solutions. So really great, foundationally built on Microsoft's Azure cloud, and it's really amazing. However, a lot of customers have said, hey, that's great. I probably want to build generative AI solutions at some point, but I kind of just want my employees to be able to start using it and using it safely and not worrying about, where's the data going and what's happening with that. And we said, well, we'd love to help you out there. And as a value included in your Microsoft 365 licensing, if you point your web browser to bing.com/chat or go to copilot.microsoft.com, you can safely work with large language models and current large language models, GPT-4o, and Bing index data. And so what's value about this is when you sign in with your Microsoft 365 credentials, you'll be comforted to know that none of that chat history and chat data is being saved. Microsoft does not have any eyes-on access to what's being put into those prompts. And at no time is any of what you're putting in the prompt being used to train some kind of a foundational model, right? Super important for corporate data, right? You don't want this to be ending up what you're searching for or what you're prompting to end up in somebody else's results because a model has been trained off of that data. So customers are very happy about that and said, oh, this is great. I have another option here. I can now make this available to my employees very quickly. And they can start using this. And we've actually even recently enabled enterprise data protections on top of that. So, if you have security and compliance things that you're doing around your data, that Copilot content is available in there as well, too. So that's great. And customers then said, well, doing access to the web is one thing, and that's wonderful. But Microsoft, you have all of these other amazing cloud services and experiences. How can I just have generative AI at my fingertips there? And we heard our customers and we listened and we said, great, let's help you out with that as well, too. And our sort of, name for this is Copilot, lowercase c. We have Copilots in a lot of different experiences that we provide customers. And this is just a small sampling of them. We started in providing Copilot and generative AI capabilities for developers in GitHub as a way to be able to help developers quickly build out content and focus on kind of the harder computer science problems. We have brought Copilot into the Power Platform, into our low-code, no-code, and even business intelligence capabilities. Deploying Copilot for security to help security practitioners find those things that are super important to them. Ashley talked about those role-based Copilots that we'll be featuring in sessions 2, 3, and 4, where we're sort of providing a more focused generative AI experience for people based on their certain roles in the organization, humble sales folks like myself, or folks that work in customer service and finance. But the star of the show for today is Microsoft 365 Copilot. And this is about taking and making that generative AI available to you in the Microsoft 365 services that you use and hopefully love every day. And it's a growing number of surface areas that we've made these available. When we launched, we were kind of focused a little bit more on the Office applications and Teams. And for those of you that are wondering, this last one on the right here is Microsoft Loop, sort of a newer, more modern way to collaborate and work with content. But we've since expanded that portfolio across a number of different applications, many of which I hope are very familiar to you. And the integration there is really the key differentiator. You're saying, well, why, Chris, should I care about this? You said I could just go to this website and I have access to generative AI. Well, there's a lot of key things here. First of all, it is a primary entry point that allows you to access not only web-based data in a number of locations, but also accessing your work data. It's available directly within your Microsoft 365 apps. So as opposed to having to context switch to go out to something else, I can invoke generative AI where I already am and already working, and it's really powerful. And I'm going to actually show a lot of examples of this as time allows. And then, as I mentioned, not only is it useful to you in terms of being able to access those large language models and to be able to reason over web-based data, one of the other key differentiators is without having to go and copy a bunch of text and paste it into a big prompt window, you can leverage and make use of the content that's already in Microsoft 365 through something called the Microsoft Graph. It's the index and understanding of all of the files in your OneDrive and SharePoint, your calendar items, your email messages, your chats in Teams, and that understanding of the content that you've been working on or might be important to you. All of that is also readily available and addressable through Copilot in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So it's hugely powerful and a big, big, big differentiator. And much like I mentioned with Copilot for the web, using Microsoft 365 Copilot, any of those prompts, any of the things that you're doing there, that will never be used to train any kind of a foundational model. If you want to train models, awesome. That first thing, Azure OpenAI that we talked about, that's your friend. But until then, we want you to know that you can safely work with Copilot for Web signed in with your Microsoft account or Microsoft 365 Copilot, and know that what you're going to be doing with that is safe and protected. Lastly, there's also a great extensibility story behind this as well too. So nobody lives in the Microsoft bubble, not even Microsoft. And so when you need to be able to have Copilot also reason over maybe some knowledge data or reach out to other third-party systems, the Copilot Studio or even a Pro Code solution, of which there are a number, can help you extend where Copilot can be helpful across the overall experience. Now, because this is a service and not something that you have to build, one of the amazing things about that is we are handling all of the plumbing for you, including the things that you would want to make sure are covered around responsible AI. And I could spend the balance of the time talking about just this, but suffice it today to say we're very, very thoughtful about bringing solutions into market, bringing new models and capabilities into market when we consider things like reliability and safety, privacy and security, super important to enterprise customers, inclusivity, transparency, and accountability. All of these sort of guiding principles for us around responsible AI are important to the thing that you don't need to worry about because you're consuming this as a service and not building a capability. Now, when we talk about the impacts of generative AI, we're seeing a lot of impacts. And these are not meant to be exhaustive, these next two slides, but we've seen a tremendous amount of impact both in the things that you might be doing every day as part of your job or your work, right? So trying to run more effective meetings like I know we're all trying to do. I saw some attendees here that are attesting to that in the meeting, whether you're creating some content, processing communications, or maybe depending on the part of the business that you sit in, right? So, we see people in HR using this for a lot of really interesting capabilities, marketing, us humble folks in sales, IT, et cetera, finance. Neither of those two sets of lists are meant to be exhaustive, but just know that we see a lot of value. And one of the things that we also focus on is providing great resources for our customers and their employees to help tap into this value. So super important. Now, one of the key things that you'll probably hear me touch on is the fact that using generative AI in your workflow, it's requiring building new muscle, right? You kind of need to learn how to do this and work with generative AI in a different way, and you kind of need to commit to it. I'd like for you all to think back to when you first started searching the web. Right? You went out to your search engine of choice. For me, given the gray hair, that was a long time ago. That was like Alta Vista, Yahoo days. And I put in a keyword, and then I did all this scrolling to try to find the thing that I want. And then someone smarter than me said, well, if you do a word and then a plus sign and another word, you can do less scrolling. You can find the thing you want. I said, that's great. And then somebody said, well, I hear you're trying to track down something specific, like an error message or whatever. If you put all that stuff in quotes, you get right to what you want. So when we started to learn to search, we had to build muscle, right? And we had to learn kind of how to be really effective with this tool. Generative AI is even more importantly so. So we really need to learn to press on and explore. Start simple, of course, but just know the more specific that you can be, the more you can make your prompts that you're using, taking into account what you're trying to get, what's sort of the backstory here, where do you want the information to come from, and kind of what are you expecting. All of these things will ultimately help you get to a better end result. So when we think about the prompts and the kinds of things that you want to do, right? Whether it's like I want to recap a meeting, I want to give some context, I was late and I want an overview of what happened, what are those sources of information, or what am I trying to get at? And then some expectations. I can craft these really fantastic prompts that really help me get to the meat of what I want, and it better enable generative AI to help me get to what I want. So I've been talking for a lot, and I'm super excited to get into showing you some things. Before I transition to demo, I guess I'm going to ask my co-presenters, is there anything in the Q&A or chat that I should be mindful of before I transition over?
Nope, all good on this side, Chris. I'm monitoring the Q&A, so people feel free to add in. I did put some information about how to reach out to us individually, as well as how to sign up for future episodes, but keep proceeding.
Awesome, great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and instead move out of the slides for a little bit and go ahead and share my desktop. And my charter right now, and what I'm really wanting to do is to show you just a lot of art of the possible, right? So just, hey, what are some of the kinds of things that I might do, and what can I do? I'm demoing out of a demo environment, right? So not an environment tied to anything else. And this is general code that is generally available, right? So nothing that has been flighted into here that's early access or anything like that. It's things that if you're licensed for Copilot or you're licensed for Copilot for Microsoft 365, you would see some of that stuff already. So the first thing I want to start with is this Copilot for web experience. So you can see I went to bing.com/chat, and I'm signed in with my organizational credentials. And you see this nice comforting green shield that shows me that, hey, my content is protected, it's secure, there's commercial data protections applied to this. And this is that entry point that I can go to where I can work with those large language models and web-based data. So let me talk about why these large language models are interesting and why grounding in the web is also interesting as opposed to just the large language model. A little bit before, I'm on the East Coast, and so a little bit before this, I quickly had a little bit of lunch. And one of the things that I had for lunch was my favorite soda, which is a cherry Coca-Cola Zero, right? And so I was like, oh, this is wonderful. And I was like, well, if this is zero sugar, why does it taste sweet? So this is an interesting thing. Let's do a little exploration here. So I can go ahead and ask Copilot, if it doesn't have any sugar, why does it taste sweet? And here you can see an example of how generative AI coupled with web-based grounding is interesting. Not only does it answer my question, but it also helps me understand, hey, where did you get this information? When I think about Copilots and generative AI in general, I like to position them with customers as a pool of tireless, well-intended interns. Okay, you're still on the hook for whatever an intern gives you back based on your request. You're still on the hook for accuracy, tone, knowledge, right? If I ask an intern, however amazing she or he might be, I might still want to review what I get before sending it up the chain, that kind of a thing. So to help with that, we give you these little citations here so you can go jump to those web-based resources from the Bing Index to understand, hey, where'd you get this information? And then I can know that this is okay. So this is good, right? It talks to me about some of the sweeteners that it uses, and that's interesting. And then I thought, well, that Coca-Cola, cherry Coca-Cola Zero is wonderful. What would it be like if I had it in really big quantities? So if you think about something that maybe probably isn't on some kind of a web page somewhere, I might want to know from Copilot, how many cans of soda would fit in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, right? Probably not something that is written down on a website somewhere. And so this is an example of now the generative AI in the large language model having to solve a problem. It's having to go, okay, well, a can of soda, if I look that up, has 355 milliliters in it, and the average Olympic-sized swimming pool holds 2.5 million liters of water. And now let me do a calculation for you. So here's that benefit, right? I've got the large language model and the training and the understanding to be able to figure things out. I can leverage that Bing index and get current internet data and web data. but also lean into the ability for this to be able to kind of help me solve some problems, right? So just in general, why do you care about large language models, and what would you go to the web interface here for to be able to do some research? Hopefully that was a nice, if not lunch-based example for what you would do there. Now, you can see also, unlike search, where I search for a term and then I have my grief counseling of scrolling through a page of links, and then I have to go, well, what else do I want to search for to get to what I want? Working with generative AI is a conversational experience. So I could continue to refine, right? Tell me more fun soda-related trivia, right? That kind of a thing. And so I can now have a conversational experience with the generative AI, right? I'm going to change now topics with the generative AI, and you can do that. So I don't want to confuse it because it's remembering what we talked about here. We're going to talk about something new in a fictional scenario I'm going to set up for you. So I've changed topics. So I've kind of, asked Copilot to, we're moving on, change topics, etc. So let's say, for example, that maybe you're new to working with or new to the Association for Corporate Growth, right? And what you've been asked to do is to provide some kind of a speech. And so we're going to take you through a little bit of a narrative about how you might do that. The first thing is, well, you kind of want to understand the organization better. And what better tool to be able to use for that than Copilot on the web? In the same way that I ask my questions about the Cherry Coke, I can go ahead and ask something like, and again, I'm setting some context. I'm new. Help me understand the organization, its mission, as well as its history. Include a good amount of detail, right? Trying to help be specific with your intern, right? Make sure that you get kind of what you want. And so now I can ask the question, hey, give me some information here. This is the mission, etc. It's founded, it's whatever. And you can see, I know I'm probably good because it's citing the acg.org website, right? So I know that, okay, this information is good. I can trust this, right? And then from here, if I wanted to, I could then take and copy this information, and maybe I put it into a Word document to reference as I'm building my speech, right? So using the web to do some research and then making that available to me right here. So I'm in the web context, and that's awesome. But you said, hey, Chris, the magical stuff here is that Copilot is available and generative AI is available at your fingertips in your Office applications and services. And I didn't fib, and let's show you how. So if I come in here to this Word Online document, I'm in the browser instance of most of these documents, but just know for a lot of these experiences, it works in the web instances of them. It works in the desktop versions of the apps. This is an amazing experience on both Windows and Mac OS, so we don't want to leave anybody out there. I have routinely used an iPad, I have an Android phone, and I have an iOS device, and it's fantastic on all of these different experiences. So we want to meet you where you are in those different endpoints. Ashley, did you have a question or comment, or nope? Just
just testing buttons.
Just testing buttons. Awesome. Okay, so good. So let's say I want to go ahead and I want to create this speech, right? Word is a great place to start authoring kind of longer form content. So you can see very clearly, actually, let me refresh this because something's been rolling out here recently and that page just got a little stale. We've actually brought Copilot right here to the top to help you focus on, hey, don't start from a blank slate. One of the huge values of Copilot is going from 0 to something very quickly, right? So now I can ask Copilot what I want to do. I could say, well, what I'm interested in doing is let's create a couple page speech for the members of the Association of Corporate Growth that celebrates some successes, looks forward to some challenges and opportunities, welcome all the new members to the organization, express excitement for the future. And then remember, I did that research on the history of the organization, and I want to be able to reference that by reaching into the file that I created. That's something called grounding. I want to reach into something in Microsoft 365. And so I can do that by typing a /, and you can see it actually shows me, hey, I just recently started working on that document, and it's right here at my fingertips. Or I could start typing to find it, or if I'm in the web version of Word, I can actually start browsing for the files. So this is a way for me to, again, use generative AI, but make my prompt smarter and more well-informed by organizational data. In this case, it's something I did from research, but imagine all those documents that you have. Now I can go through and say, hey, okay, help me with my rough draft. Now, when I said to you, you had to write a 2-page speech to give, and I asked you, how long do you think it would take to get to the rough draft? Would any of you had said 5 seconds? Probably not, right? But this is the power of generative AI, right? The ability to quickly get me from an idea of something I want to do to help me get some content on paper very, very quickly. And you can see this is amazing because it started off the overall speech in terms of reflecting on the journey. These are actually the bullets in the document that I saved. In fact, I'll show you, nothing up my sleeve. There's that content. So that I reached into, that I built a little before the session here, and then some language here about celebrating and looking forward, right? Amazing, super fast. By the way, though, you're always in charge with Copilot. So, for example, you can see I've not committed this to the page yet. If I want to keep it because I'm happy with the output, great. If not, if I want to make it longer or shorter, if I want to completely, redo the overall prompt and get to what I want, fine. Or I could have said, make 3 drafts or 5 drafts, and I can help figure out which one I like better. The intern's doing the work. I don't care. It's just a little bit more for me to review, right? I will, for the purposes of this, go ahead and keep this and then say, hey, maybe as I'm reviewing this copy here, I may go, well, this is nice, and good job, Copilot, but it's not necessarily the language that I want. Is there a better way to do this? Probably, but I'm struggling with a little bit of writer's block. Right here, I can highlight that paragraph and say, hey, Copilot, can you take another whack at that? Can you figure out some other ways that I might want to do this? And in seconds, now I have a couple of other paragraphs to help me get this speech, and not only just write a speech, but help me get to the right speech, the speech that I want. And I can do that. And I could even change the language, make it more impassioned, give some examples, whatever it is, that kind of a thing, to be able to make this really what I want. So, and I actually like the second one, enhancing our network platforms. I like that quite a bit. All right. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that not only was Copilot available at the top, but there's this also Copilot button in the ribbon. And then opens up Copilot in its own pane. And it's a way for me to now interact with and ask questions about this document right from within here. So imagine, again, I'm either creating something, or maybe somebody sent me a really large document. I could do things like ask Copilot, hey, quickly give me a summary, or create this as an FAQ. As it relates to me building this speech, when people talk about generative AI, what they have in mind is you give it a prompt and then it spits out a bunch of text. Generative AI is a lot more than that. And one of the things that it can do is also help you periscope up or take a new perspective on things. So, for example, I might want to know, as I'm refining my speech, where might I do better? And so I might ask Copilot, hey, can you give me some specific examples from this on how I can improve it for an employee town hall or whatever it is, right? And so now Copilot has that context in mind and will reason over this. Imagine this isn't a speech for an internal town hall, but it's a brochure or a marketing post or a blog post that's really kind of intended for a specific audience. Hey, Copilot, look at this and make this really resonate with X, Y, and Z audience. And you can see it's given me some specific examples of citations within here that I can do to make this a little bit more amazing and a better experience for my consumers of the speech. So lots of good stuff happening there. Okay, so that's in Word, right? I've got some content in Word. I started in Web. I did a little bit of research there, and I did some things in Word. We're going to change hats now, and we've moved on from leadership, and we're moving into the role of somebody who works in marketing, right? And I've been, toiling away here in marketing, building out this amazing marketing plan, right? I've got all this content, an overview, target market information, marketing objectives, all this stuff, right? And I've written this up, and now I want to take this and get it approved and within the organization. And so normally what happens is you would sit down in a room and you'd have a meeting, and you'd go over sort of the finer points of this plan. And you're not typically going to bring Word up and do that. What you're typically going to do is to say, hey, let's put a presentation together on this, right? Again, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is how long would it take you to get to a rough draft of a presentation based on an 11-page Word document with graphics and all of those things in it, right? With Copilot, super easy. So I can go to this blank presentation here, and much like within Word, I can open up Copilot in its own sidecar, and it's going to look and see, hey, what's going on here. In this case, Copilot can help me start creating in a number of different ways. I could create from a prompt, but I've already done the heavy lifting. I've got something already within my organization that I want to reference. And so I can say, hey, I want to be able to create a presentation from a file, and I want to be able to create a presentation from this marketing plan. So when I say Copilot, go ahead and start working here, Copilot's going to do what you would probably do. It's going to review the document and go, all right, well, let me read through this and figure out, well, how might this be structured? How many slides should I have? What should those titles be? What text and images from the document should go on the slides? You know, all of that kind of stuff, if you will. And so Copilot's going to go through and create that, again, rough draft. Don't expect 100% finished copy from Copilot. That's not its point. But again, very quickly, I went from 0 to 13 slides of this particular document in just a second. This one I don't love. The intern failed me a little bit there. But now I can start revising and working through my content and making this kind of what I want it to be, right? I might want to do something like add a relevant image to this slide, right? And I can use natural language to help me work with Copilot and the functionality and the features that are integrated here, right? So, and apparently my agenda is a balancing act, and I'm fine with that. So the ability for me to be able to use natural language to work with the Office applications, unlike just a general purpose model, Copilot in Microsoft 365, it's integrated more deeply into these experiences. So when you're using Copilot in PowerPoint, it knows PowerPoint, and the outputs that it gives you are PowerPoint aware, right? So not only did I get a bunch of slides, you'll also notice that I started with a template. And so Copilot used that template and worked with that template to make these slides in the way that I wanted to. And, you know, maybe towards the end here at the conclusion, maybe what I want to do, what we would do for a lot of these kinds of reviews is, and even for today, right, at the end of our presentation here, there's a slide that's like, you know, we want to wrap everything up, right? So I might want to say, hey, Copilot, can you add a new slide here thanking the audience and encouraging them to ask questions? Again, I could probably do this by, you know, inserting and finding the slide that I want, thinking out what I wanted to say. Okay, it's being cranky with me right now, and that's fine, and I may just move on. But the ability for natural language to be able to help get to an output at the end of this with Copilot in PowerPoint, it's super helpful, right? And again, it was just cranky for a second. Sometimes you have to ask the intern more than once. But here, I got exactly what I asked for. Thank you, and a graphic that encouraged people to ask questions, right? Natural language getting me to an output that I want. So super interesting. I'm going to pause to see questions in the chat. Anything at all. Please ask questions in Q&A. It's up at the top of your Teams client. I'd love to know if there are things that are top of mind for you as we go through this. Okay, I've only got about 20 more minutes of content, and I'll show a few more experiences here. One of the things actually reminded me just a little bit before this that on Monday, Satya Nadella and Jared Spataro had an announcement about our Wave 2 set of announcements around Copilot. We're continuing to really innovate strong in this area, adding value, refining, making improvements, listening to customers very deeply about the things that matter to them, the experiences they're trying to light up and enable. And we announced a number of different things on Monday. One of those is the fact that Copilot in Excel has been in preview for a long time, and it has now gone generally available. So it is now, fit for purpose for production use within an organization, which is great. So here I've got a table of some Excel data, right? It's a lot of inventory data. One of the things that we do at my fictional company of Contoso is we work with electronic bikes. Okay, so I've got some inventory information here, and I might want to sort of better understand what's going on with this particular data. You can see I've got some profit margin data. I've got some value here. I might want to see instances where, let's say, for example, I might want to know where is my profit margin less than 0. And so I can open up a Copilot here and use natural language to say, hey, can you give me some kind of an icon or formatting if my profit margin 0? I can kind of scroll through here, but I want to have Copilot help me layer in here the overall experience. So now it's looking at a conditional formatting rule to give me a set of icons in here, and I can go ahead and apply this into the content. And now you can see I have this fantastic visual indicator where at a glance I can see, where things are okay, where things are good, and more importantly, as I asked for, where things are bad. So Copilot actually overachieved there a little bit. It gave me a little bit more detail than I initially asked for, but that's how interns get promotions. They do big things. So The other things that I might want to know, for example, is if I've got profit margin, what I might want to know is what would happen to my expenses here if I reduce my production costs by 10% of my road bikes. So again, the ability for me to be able to use natural language, ask questions of Copilot, and help me, understand my data a little bit more as we look into this. So the other thing that's great about this is, and I didn't point this out in the first example, Copilot tells you what it's doing, right? So it says, oh, here's how I got to this, right? To determine this, I did a calculation and then I did another calculation, and these are the formulas that I used, and it's a way for me to be able to add those in here and help me with that overall experience. The last thing I might want to know, or one of the things I might want to know is I might want to say, hey, give me some insights on this data. Help me, it's a lot of rows and columns, and I'm not really sure exactly what I might want to know here. But can you give me an idea of, visually of what I might want to know? And I could see, hey, here's some current pricing information based on a particular category, right? So price by breaks, etc. I can actually ask Copilot, hey, can you give me a bunch of different insights about my data? And I could say that there's that conversational nature. And now I can say, add all of these insights to a grid. And so now it's giving me a little visual analysis on top of my data right here in line, along with bringing in all the pivot information that I might want to drill into. So really powerful in terms of me being able to interact with this overall Excel spreadsheet. Questions, any commentary or anything that I need to be aware of?
There are a couple of good questions, and one I'll pick out. Apart from being integrated with Microsoft Documents, what are the key differentiators with Copilot, Genesis, Claude, or ChatGPT? In other words, how does it fit into the larger offering that's available across the market?
Great question. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 and our sort of Copilots as a service, although I don't think that's a term and, whatever, but the Copilots that are integrated into the capabilities that you acquire, there are actually, multiple models that are in use here. It's kind of like somebody asking the question, what version is Exchange Online? You don't really care because what you care about is the fact that you can use your email in the cloud. However, if you do have specific models that you need to use or scenarios that you're looking to address with specific models, Azure OpenAI is your tooling to help with that. There are, I think, 1,200 different models in the catalog right now. Actually, you can fact check me on that. But you can then use that to be able to build custom models or leverage specific models or do training with specific models there, but running it on Microsoft Azure. Great question. Okay, let's move forward and talk about something that I know is still fun for everybody, and that is email. I'm showing the new Outlook client, something that's probably a little polarizing for any of you that heard that term, and just because it's the client that I prefer to use. But we do have a great experience for Copilot in the classic Outlook. Copilot on Mac OS has this as well too. And where, although I'm not going to show it today, which is really quite amazing, is when you have Copilot in Outlook on your mobile device, not the integrated mail clients, but Copilot in Outlook, amazing experience as well too. Everybody on this call, I bet, has an email that looks something like this. Right? A great big long thread that got lobbed over to you in inbox where somebody, all this stuff is happening and somebody says, help, right? So the question you want to ask yourself is, what's going on in here and how much do I really need to dig in? And this is where Copilot is amazing, right? Right at the top here, I can say, hey, Copilot, what's going on in this thread? And very quickly, Copilot reads through the entire thread and gives me a quick synopsis to better understand, hey, what's going on here, right? So thinking about, again, generative AI, not just about a prompt creating text. This is now Copilot and generative AI doing some analysis and helping me understand, where do I need to lean in more here? Do I need to understand this more? Is this something better suited for a colleague to be able to work on, etc. And it gave me this nice little narrative. It actually told the story chronologically this time. I know the thread. It's Donna asked some questions and then some things happened. So it actually helped me with the overall narrative. And now I'm informed to be able to better understand what's happening. Now, maybe I go, this isn't really for me. It's for a colleague of mine. I might want to take and forward this message. And Copilot can help me not only with triage and review and summarization, but it can also help me with drafting, right? And I might do something simple as review. I might want to send this to my colleague, Daichi, and I might want to say, review this thread and send an email to Daichi summarizing, and asking him to follow up, right? So I don't want to necessarily have to do that work. Let's let Copilot create that rough draft of that email message for me, right? So instead of having for me to go through and pull all the salient details out of the thread, Copilot now does all that for me, pulls out the high points of concern, some of the challenges, sees this great opportunity for showcase some of our solutions, even suggested, hey, these are some of the technologies that might apply here. Can you follow up with Miriam, etc.? And a nice little salutation at the end here. And if I wanted to tweak or change something, making it shorter or longer, more formal, more direct, more casual, making it a poem, definitely a crowd pleaser in certain demos. Again, I'm empowered here to be able to manage this. And again, think about the time savings that just happened here. Now I've got this rough draft. I can tweak, maybe if I don't sign my emails with thanks and I want something else, tremendous time saver. Speaking of time savers, in working with email, one of the other things that we typically will need to do is, in this case, I took a long thread and I said, okay, this is really for everybody that, it's for Daichi and I want Daichi to kind of lean into this. But in this case, I've got kind of a little bit of another long thread here. And maybe I've done some reading and I go, okay, what this really requires is a meeting. Copilot now, or Outlook now, a new Outlook has a capability called Schedule with Copilot. So what this does is it reviews the entire thread. It creates a meeting subject that is specific based on the thread. Not only that, it creates a detailed agenda as well as a summary of all that's transpired ahead of that I can now insert into this meeting request, right? A lot of the meetings that you attend probably don't even have an agenda, right? And this has Copilot crafting a well thought out, well informed agenda based on the meeting thread. Again, tremendous time savings that it provides here right within Outlook. So if you've not played with this before, strongly encourage you to take a look at this if you have a Copilot license. And if you haven't, I would wonder what's stopping you. Now, if I go ahead and discard this, so we can do some great things with email. Like I said, also really good on mobile as well, too. I would encourage you there to be able to tinker into that. One of the other things that Copilot can help with is not only crafting your message, but also the ability for me to leverage Copilot at the top here to get some coaching or feedback, right? Hey, I'm about to craft a message that I'm going to send 3 levels up in the org. Is there anything that I might want to think about or consider, right? Getting you that other perspective like I did with the speech earlier on. I can have it do this for me in my email as look, how is my tone? What's the reader sentiment like? Am I being clear? I really want to be clear to someone 3 levels up the org, right? Helping me coach, right? We've had a lot of contacts at customers say that Copilot's helping them find a kinder, gentler version of themselves as it relates to their email communications where they've tended to be kind of terse and gruff, if you will. Now, the thing that happens for all of us is we're in meetings all day long. And so we want to be super effective in our meetings. And one way that we can do that is to be able to leverage Copilot during our meetings. I don't remember what the name was, but somebody hopped into this webinar a little bit kind of as we were into it, or maybe they had to rejoin, I don't know. But that's a common scenario for probably all of us. If we looked at our calendar this week, everybody probably has an instance of where you were, booked in a time slot 2 and 3 meetings wide. You had to pick which one of those you wanted to attend live. And then you've got the homework assignment of catching up on those other meetings. But say if I was in one meeting, and it ended early, or I, realized that I didn't need to be there, and the second one was running, I don't want to, when I come into the meeting, I might want to know, hey, what's going on here? But I don't want to interrupt the presenter and the speaker in their flow. And so I'll show you here in this live running session, since we're hosting the meeting, people on the Microsoft side can do this. I can open up Copilot and I can say, hey, can you recap the meeting so far? Right? I don't have to interrupt Chris, the wonderful speaker. I'm going to now have a one-on-one interaction with Copilot and have it tell me, hey, what's happened here so far? And rightfully so, Ashley introduced the event. He introduced some guest speakers. Chris talked about all these things. I'm not sure I love the way it spelled my last name, but, right? You can see this is really super current, right? Like I asked the question talking about Copilot and meetings, and I was, 20 seconds into that topic. So really powerful. And then from here, I can ask other questions. Hey, what else has happened here? Did anybody talk about this? Did we ask about that? I can have that natural language interface on top of my meeting. I can do that not only for the meetings that are being transcribed or recorded, because Copilot needs that text, that transcription. I could also potentially go to that meeting that I missed. Say, for example, if I go to this, Project Falcon readiness meeting and I go to the recap, much like I showed you having a one-on-one experience with Copilot in a live meeting, when you record and have a license for Copilot for Microsoft 365, the recap includes a number of static artifacts, right? A link to the recording that I could play and watch if I really wanted to, but I'm busy. I got to go quick. So I can see a speaker timeline, any topics that were talked about. I can see a static set of AI-generated speaker notes and follow-up tasks. And if that's not answering the question that I want, in lieu of watching the whole recording, I might want to open up this interaction with Copilot to ask some more interesting questions like, hey, what questions were asked during the meeting, right? And I could see what was talked about. Or if I knew this was a meeting about making a decision, what was the sentiment in the meeting? Like how were people doing, right? And this could have been contentious, right? So being able to get a read from Copilot on, okay, that was kind of a little bit heated. And not only that, but now I could say, well, Robin made this comment right at the 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Maybe I don't watch the whole recording, but I jump right to the thing that I care about. Again, Copilot saving me time, not just in content creation, but in triaging the avalanche of information and meetings that we're in all day long. All right, rounding third base here for the demos. I do want to talk about one other instance of where Copilot is in Microsoft 365 before I turn it over to Brad, and that is the Copilot app in Teams. This is Copilot in the context of you. You're grounded in Microsoft 365, and instead of being tied to a specific application, this is Copilot in the context of you that allows you to do some really interesting things tied to your business data, or potentially tied to things that are happening in the web. Say, for example, thinking about that project meeting, right, that I wasn't able to attend. Maybe what I really need to do is to craft a summary email of that meeting and send it to my colleague, Amber, right? So what I can do is let Copilot help me by using the ability to ground or reference all kinds of information. I might say, hey, write an email that summarizes this meeting, and then kind of like I showed you earlier, I can use a /, and I can start searching for all different kinds of content. People and files and meetings and emails. In this case, it actually suggested meeting because it knows that I use the word meeting. And I could say, go look at this meeting, give me some bullets, highlight the topics covered, and help me get to what I care about, which is a draft of an email based on the meeting. So I don't have to necessarily go and do all of that back and forth work between the transcript and asking Copilot questions. Copilot's just going to go ahead and reach into that meeting and that transcript and help build that summary email for me. This is what was talked about, meeting market readiness, a PR plan update. Here are the questions. Here are the outstanding tasks. Tremendous, tremendous time savings, right? Another example, real quick, as I look to finish up here and hand over to Brad. Much like I can do in Copilot for the web, I'm going to start a new conversation here with Copilot. And in the Copilot app in Teams, one of the things that I can also enable, amongst some other things, is, as I mentioned on that first slide, access to web-based content. So right from here, I can put prompts in that not only allow me to access those large language models and my organizational data, if I reference it or explicitly or implicitly, or I can then reach out to that web data. So again, we work with electronic bikes here in Contoso, and maybe what I might want to know is, hey, can you, for example, list out the top 5 players of electric bikes in North America marketing? Make a table to compare the key bike offerings for each bike, right? So this is me reaching out to the public internet for electronic bike companies and getting some information on that. And then what I might want to do is now compare that against our corporate product specification, right? So I can say, hey, now what I want you to do is take and compare against giant bikes with our Thunderbolt bike here using our product specification, and give me some pros and cons in a table, right? And I can have that kind of conversational experience with here, a little bit of back and forth. And you can see now it's pulling out from the 2024 models on the internet information on giant bikes and some of the specs, the pros and cons, right, of the different things. And then again, I could even do something, again, natural language. Copilot knows what we've been talking about. I can use a phrase like, do the same comparison, but with rad power bikes, right? So again, this natural language interface, much in the same way I turn to the intern and say, okay, that's nice, thank you, I'll take that one, but go do it again with rad power bikes. I didn't have to state again exactly what I wanted. I can have that kind of conversational experience here and quickly get to that information. So again, tons and tons of awesome things that I think that you can do here within the Microsoft 365 suite. I'm super passionate about it, as you can see. And so with that, Brad, I think what I'm going to do is turn back over to you for any final questions and to close us out.
Amazing.
Once I...
So Chris, that was an absolutely fantastic, I'll call it overview, tip of the iceberg, because it was really, I know there's so much more under the water that we could be looking at. So from Quanta's perspective, we've been working with Microsoft for a number of years, and it's really been a tremendous journey. And now with Copilot and some of these very specific Copilots you touched on, it's extremely helpful. And I'm hoping that everybody has seen the value. If you click forward to the next slide. So what we basically have put together is companies, we realize that companies need help with this. So it's one thing to just get into it and begin yourself, and that's fine. But when it comes to a corporate perspective, many companies are a little apprehensive to actually adopt the technology. And so, as Chris indicated earlier, a lot of people are using shadow IT, which is okay-ish. Your management may or may not like that. But we come in and we help those companies in terms of how they can actually get productive results and ROI. Click the screen again. We've come up with a few different packages. So M365 Copilot is just your basic Copilot. And what a lot of the things that Chris showed you today, roles-based Copilot actually gives you access to internal data that you might have within your company. So now it starts to search not only the internet and internet data, but also internal data. One of the most important things as well is security, a critical path for your corporation and corporate governance. And then finally, custom Copilot. And so custom Copilots, again, allow you to get access to different data. If you go to the next slide, you'll get a little bit more of a sense of what that looks like. So think about some of these back-end applications. So again, as Chris indicated, it's not all about Microsoft. It's absolutely about all the systems that you use on a daily basis. And we are an integrator, and we're also a Microsoft partner. We also do strategy work to help people. Where do you begin? What should you do? What should your adoption plan look like? How do you make it productive? So we're here to help. And many people don't realize that you can have more than one Microsoft partner. So we a lot of times tuck in as a specialist to help with Copilot. You might have licenses, but those companies may or may not be up on the latest with Copilot. I'm learning a lot and do every day, especially with their announcements. And the final slide will be our contact slide. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to just have a conversation. This is about helping and advising and pitching, just helping out. Here's some of the other episodes that are coming up, just as a quick refresh. If you want to take a quick look at that, we'll be publishing this on LinkedIn and other places. Email if you want to contact us through email, and then of course the QR code. Anything else, guys? This is really helpful and super amazing. Thank you both.
Hour, but it's been wonderful. And for those that are attending today, please notice that the other episodes are talking about other versions of Copilot. So Chris did a great job providing a baseline understanding of how Copilot works in general, especially related to Microsoft 365. But we will be diving into other Copilot versions that focus on sales, service, and marketing. And again, if there's an opportunity for us to talk to you directly, don't wait for the next episode. Feel free to reach out to us and we can set up something more customized and more private for you and your company. With that said, Chris and Brad, thank you for your participation. It's great to be partnering with the Association of Corporate Growth as well as Quanta Networks to bring this series to the public. And I'm hoping the next episodes are just as impactful. Thanks for joining. Everybody have a really nice day. Bye-bye.